Good evening. Oh, let me situate myself. Good evening. Welcome to the Queen's Court. Again, I got a lot to say. I appreciate you all being here with me. We're going to talk a little bit about Randle. If you watch the NBK show, we talked a little bit about it there, a lot about it, actually. I'm going to talk about it some more. I want to talk about the Knicks' approach to roster construction, not necessarily who we should or shouldn't get, but what's the Knicks' approach going to be? And a lot of that has to do with what they're going to do about Randle. I want to talk a little bit about Tibbs. I want you guys to check me if this is a legitimate concern. Am I overreacting? And just a little bit of Twitter chatter. I'm always watching, reading the comments on Twitter, and each day is something there that either I strongly agree with or strongly disagree with. So I said I'll just bring it to the chat. And you guys will let me know what you think about it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, as you know, this show is on the NBK channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do hit that notification button so you'll know when I or any of us go live. And if you like the video, hit that like button as well. NBK, the NBK family of shows, have you covered for all of your Knicks content in season and off season. So stay put, we got you. And also stay tuned for the NBK draft party in Atlantic City to get you some details on that. So shout out to Sim, as always. Shout out to the NBK family of shows, and let's get it. Let's get it. I want to start with Randle. The first thing I want to say is, just give him his flowers and just shout out to him for being an all-star, most improved player, making the all-NBA second team, which is huge. 24 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. He was in the top 10 in double-doubles with 41. He was 7th in triple-doubles with 6. Just really balled out for the Knicks this season and really accelerated our timeline, quite frankly, which is why we're in this conundrum, if you will. But listen, there's some questions about Randle. And I think the number one question is, and we talked about this a little bit on the NBK show, do we keep Randle or do we sell high? I mean, his stock probably won't be any higher than it is right now, right? The Knicks have to decide, is he the guy they're going to build around? Or are they going to build around the young core, RJ, Obi, Quickly, Mitch, and whoever else they get in the draft, right? In my opinion, I believe in Randle. Now, that's not to say that I don't have concerns. I think his play in the playoffs gave me some pause. But he's not the first player to struggle the first time they made the playoffs, right? And if I had to put money on it, I would bet that the next time we get in the playoffs, he's going to be much better, right? I would feel much more confident that he played better in the playoffs, but I still think that he's somebody you can build around. Now, people will say, is he a number one? Is he a number two? Listen. If you're going to build a championship team, you need at least two all-star or NBA caliber players, right? So even if you trade Randle and you bring in another all-star, you still tasked with bringing in another all-star or NBA type player to play with him. You look at any team in a championship, in the playoffs right now, championship contenders. You look at Philly with Embiid, Simmons, Harris. You look at Denver with Murray and Jokic, and you can go on and on. The Clippers, you got to have two of those players, right? So if the Knicks think that they're just going to upgrade the roster just a little bit, you could do that. But it's going to be a first or second round exit every time. You just can't win with just one player. So for me, I would keep Randle. I would build around him. At some point, you got to stop kicking the can down the road. And I said this in the last show. At some point, you got to put your stake in the ground and say, we are going to build here, right? Now, again, I would feel much more confident in this if Randle played much better in the playoffs. I really would. But this is where we at. I think that you're talking about RJ and Obi and those guys, you hope they become what Randle is right now. And even if one of them become that, you still have to build around it, right? That's just the process. So as far as I'm concerned, do we keep Randle or sell high? I say we keep him. Let me just check in with the chat. Shout out to Chris, Steph, keep quick, Obi, and Bullock. Rafael, Elias Diaz, build around Julius Randle 100%. Nick, he can be like a Chris Bosh. Exactly. He doesn't have to. You're going to have to put players around him. It's not going to be just Randle, right? You're going to have to put another all-star around him. Howard Smith, the best thing for us is we offer that $100 million extension and he turns us down. I'm not sure about that. I would like him to sign the extension because I feel like then we have him locked in at a decent price. I think if he doesn't sign that extension, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, and he balls out next season and he balls out in the playoffs, now that next summer, the money that he could be offered is much more, right? And do we want to pay him that when we can get him cheaper now? That's a tough question for the Knicks. Geraldine McGyver, happy birthday. It's not my birthday, but I'll take it. Shout out to Keith Turner, Pete. All of you guys have great comments. I'll be checking in. This is the next question. So, yes, I would sign him despite his subpar playoff series. I would sign him this summer to an extension. Now, if he declines that, will I sign him to a potentially $200 million contract the season after? That depends. That really depends. If I'm basing it off what I'm seeing this playoffs, I'm going to say no. But if he balls out next season and he balls out in the playoffs, I would consider it. And this is the thing. And shout out to Andy who has me thinking this way. You got to look at how much money you're paying this particular player. How much percentage of the cap does that salary take up? And does that player's performance warrant that? Because think about it. Whatever you can't do, we now have to spend money and go out and get somebody who can do it. And we could be hampered, right, by all of the money we've given you. Case in point, when you look at Philly and Ben Simmons now, I'm not trying to bash Ben Simmons. I'm a Ben Simmons fan. I like his size. He's an elite defender. He has good playmaking skills. I have no problem with that. But he makes $29 million. He makes $29 million. I don't even know if he can shoot because to me, he just doesn't shoot, right? So I don't see him shooting twos. I don't see him shooting threes, and he's a poor free throw shooter. You're going to tie up $29 million in a player like Ben Simmons, who does have elite skills, don't get me wrong. But now you got to go out and get somebody who can shoot. You got to get out. Now you have to go out and get somebody who can shoot, who can hit the three, who can hit free throws so that you can keep them in the game down the stretch. How am I going to go out and get that type of player if I got $29 million tied up in you? You understand what I'm saying? So this is what becomes, for me, a little tricky about if Randle declines this extension, and now we're faced with $200 million potentially the year after. Are you going to be so great that that's fine? Whatever money we got left, we can build a team around you because this guy is great. We know what he's going to bring every single game, right? And we're not going to really need that much. Yes, we're going to need another all-star caliber player. We're not going to need We're just going to need the regular stuff that any team will need. I don't know that about Randle. Like, I got to see him next year. I got to see him in the playoffs. I'll tell you this. Unlike Ben Simmons, I don't have any concerns about Randle's skill level, right? So for me, it wouldn't be like, oh, we got to go out and get somebody that could defend because Randle can't defend. He's actually a two-way forward, believe it or not. You know, he's really good guarding his person. But it's the mental part of it. It's the being able to process what's going on in the playoffs. It's about somebody that's going to show up when the lights are bright. You know, some players got it and some players don't. But if you're playing somebody 200 million at that level, usually those types of players have another level that they can go to in the playoffs. You look at Kawhi Leonard, you know, and I think he's been playing lights out either, but in an elimination game, how he was able to step his game up, right, to get them to the next game. Can Randle do that for us? You understand? Because if he can't, then now you have to go out and spend money on somebody who can. And if all your money is tied up in him, it makes it difficult. So that's the issue I have as far as not this extension this summer, if he declines it, and now we're looking at big money the season after. What are you doing for us? You know, you got to do a lot for us to tie up that amount of money in our cap space. I'm interested in what you guys have to say about that. But then I'll move on to Geraldine McIver. Steph, I have a question. How many superstars did Toronto have when they won the trip? But that's my point. That's my point. You don't have to have superstars, but you got to have all-star, all NBA caliber players to compete. Now, Toronto went a different route where they had 3 players, but it was more balanced. But listen, when they won the chip, they still had Kawhi. You know, they had Kawhi. They had Lowry, all-star type player. They had Siakam, who had popped that year, who was coming into his own. So I could see that happening, but they still had Kawhi. Randle and role players or really good players is not going to do it. You cannot go into a playoff with just Randle as your best player and role players. Listen, I saw it with LeBron in Cleveland. I saw it with LeBron his first year with the Lakers. LeBron is a superstar player, but you can't do it by yourself. You know, and I believe when he went there, he knew that there was a good chance AD would come. Think about Kawhi. He didn't even sign with the Clippers. He was calling around himself trying to find somebody that would go there with them. Because these players know it's hard to win in this league by yourself. It's hard to win with just a good supporting cast. You need another all-star level player. Look at KD and Kyrie. I wonder if Kyrie would have came to Brooklyn if KD didn't come. Or I wonder if he signed because he knew KD was coming, right? These days and age, you need to. 1975 Jam Rock, thank you for the super chat. That's why I said Randle won't want the heat that will come to him if he signs a max deal. And that prevents the Knicks from getting him help. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I'll look into this. I'm being tutored by Andy. I'll look into this. I don't know what the Knicks salary cap looks like or would look like if they signed him to a max deal. Because this is the thing. Even when you have these 2 all-star caliber players, you still have to have enough money left to put some decent starters around them and to put a bench around them, right? If you top all your money in those 2 players and you don't have a bench, and you don't have sufficient starters at the other position, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? Shout out to Izzy Black, Wyatt Money, Kaiser Saw, 718, right? So if we decide to build around Randle, and that's an if, Mark was asking, does the front office really believe in Randle? Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. If they trade him, we know they didn't, and if they keep him and decide to build around him, then we know they do. And we're going to know this really soon. What I want you guys to pay attention to, and it took me some time to get this, and shout out again to Andy as well. When you are constructing a roster, you have to pay attention, like I said, to the salary cap, right? We're going to sign this player. How much money we're going to have left that we can put a team around them? The other thing you have to pay attention to is who's your best player. In this case, it's Randle right now. Yes, we need other pieces. I get it. But right now it's Randle. And what is Randle's prime years? Like, what is his prime years? Usually in the NBA, I did a little research on that. The prime years is from 26 to 31, right? Now, there are some players who come into their prime sooner. Look at Luka, right? If you ask me, he look like he in his prime right now. And then there's some players who are able to extend their prime, like LeBron, right? LeBron, I don't know if he's the player he was when he first came into the league as far as athleticism. But when I look at him play, I don't see much of a drop off in the impact that he has on the game. So some players are able to extend their prime past 31, right? If the Knicks are deciding that they rocking with Randle, right, they're going to build with him, right? There's two things they need to do. One, they need to recognize what his prime years are, which is right now. And they need to build a team that can compete for a championship within that timeline, right? And that means that they need to hurry up because he's in his prime now. The second thing they need to do is and we talked about this already, they need to find him another all-star or NBA player to put with him. Bottom line. The players that have been connected to the Knicks so far, in my opinion, don't move the needle. At least in terms of maximizing his prime years. Norman Powell, Lonzo Ball, Gray, these are all players that I like. I think they make the team better, but none of them are all-star, all-caliber players that you could put out there with Randle and say, these are my two best players. I know what I'm going to get game in and game out from those players, right? We don't have that. And the thing about it that I think is going to be tough for the Knicks is, where are those players? They're not just lying around, right? So some of them that we like are kind of older players, So if you think about if the Knicks decide this, right? We don't know. They can decide they're going to trade Randle and go with the core. But just human media, if they decide they're going to build around Randle within his prime window of winning, right? While he's in his prime. Oubre, Lonzo Ball, those guys are not there yet, right? And it's possible one of them can pop next season and be there. That can happen, but they're not there yet, right? So now you got to wait for them to become at the level that Randle is right now. Now Randle is getting older. Or you can go out and get somebody like Dame, but Dame is 31, right? Already. I still think he's going to extend his prime years some, right? That now, you got Randle at 27, 28, you got him at 31, 32. Yeah, you can win a chip, but the windows are off. You got to do it in such a short period of time before Dame begins to decline. So the Knicks have a tough decision. Ideally, you want to bring in a player that's around the same age as Randle. So you got those two all-star or NBA caliber players playing within that same window. But where are they? Right? Where are they? Levine is around the same age. Levine hasn't been to the playoffs either. He's potentially an all-star. But You know, we don't know what we're going to get with him in the playoffs. And Beal is in that age group as well, around the same age. I think Beal is going to be 28, actually this month, June 28th. But is Washington giving up Beal? Right? They did okay this season. They may look at them and say, you know what, we got something here. I think we can build with this. So trying to find another player, all-star caliber player to put with Randle is going to be extremely, I think it's going to be hard for the Knicks to do. But, you know, that's why they get paid the big bucks, right? To figure it out. And there's questions, though, and I kind of glossed over this. There's questions, though, whether Randle is a legit all-star or NBA player, right? So I'm talking about we need to bring in somebody else so that we can have two. And I know there are some fans questioning whether we even have one. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I do think we have one. But I'm not ready to commit that $200 and something million salary until I see him duplicate this season, or at least get close to it, and perform in the playoffs. Because you just can't have that amount of money tied up in a player that's not getting it done. You just can't. It really hampers your team. All right, let me check back in with the chat. Andy, Steph, okay. Just through the first two scenarios. Okay. Thank you, Andy. Basically, if the Knicks don't extend Randle this season to a 4-year, $160 million deal, he will be able to get a 5-year, $201 million the next. So that's in line with what I'm saying. I would sign him. I know some fans wouldn't, but I would sign him this summer to the 4-year, 116. I would give him that extension. I believe he's going to do better. $200 million then the following summer, I need to see a lot this season coming up and in the playoffs to commit that, because it's going to hamper what we're able to do if Randle proves not to be it. Let's see. Oh, Kaiser. Oh, I hope I got this right. Kaiser Souls 718. Thank you for the super chat. The Knicks championship window is 2 to 3 years in the future when LBJ, KD, and Kawhi will be old or retired. Franchises are building to be prepared for that window. Randle doesn't fit that timeline. Kaiser Soul 718, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I see you in the chat at NBK. I appreciate that as well for your support. But I have to disagree. I think that our window has to be based on our players. Our window can't be based on when players on other teams are going to retire, right? We got to build our team now based on what we have. Now, if you don't believe in Randle and you want to trade him and you want to build with the young core, that's a decision that the front office can make. But if you're going to build with Randle, you can't be like, oh, well, we got to wait for Kawhi. You can build a championship team in an off season or two. This is not like the olden days. You know, if you have the cap, if you have the cap money, if you have the assets and you're aggressive enough, you could build a team very quickly. Look what the Lakers did. Look what Brooklyn did. You know, now, if you want to say, though, that they did it, but their window was very short, I would agree. But the Lakers got it done, right? In that short window. Brooklyn very well may get it done in that short window. So I think that the point I'm trying to make is you could build a championship team really quick. Got to make shrewd moves. You got to have a capologist. You know, you got to, you know, but it can be done. So I don't think we need to wait for other people's windows. I think it's based on us. How aggressive do we want to be? Izzy Black wants Kawhi Leonard and Damian Lillard with Randle, or instead of Randle. Izzy Black, let me know that. I don't know if we have the money for all three of them. Chris, Steph, he could stay, but he's not our number one. I'm not even talking. I'm past the number one, number two, number three. When you look at Denver, does it matter if Jokic is number one, or Murray is number one, you got two all-star caliber players on your team. That's it. You look at um, um, Brooklyn. Who's number one, number two, number three over there? It doesn't matter. You got two. Please excuse my dog. I forgot. I forgot. You got three all-star or NBA caliber players. So it doesn't matter who's number one, two, three. You need multiples. So the question is, can Randle be one? Right? Can he be one, not number one? Can he be one of those two or three that you need on a team? And I believe that he can. I believe that he can. Izzy Black said with Randle. Andy, do we have enough to do a Randle, Kawhi Leonard, and Damian Lillard? And have enough money to put some starters, because that's just three people. You still got to put other starters around them, and you got to have a bench. You can't go scorch earth for just two players with no bench and other no good players at those other positions. Kaiser Soul 718, thank you again for the super chat. LA had LBJ and AD. Yes, they did. Nets have KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Yes, they did. We don't even have one superstar. Tell me how we get three superstars in the next season. It's possible. I mean, the Knicks have the assets and the draft capital and the young players to do that. You know, will they have enough after that for a bench and a good bench and two other players in that starting lineup? But yeah, the Knicks could do that. Actually, Chop, appreciate you. Yes, let's get those likes up. Kawhi having knee surgery. No, thank you to him. All of this being said, though, that the Knicks do need another all-star or NBA player. And if you don't believe that Randle is one of them, then the Knicks should just trade him, right? But if you believe he's one, you need another. But this is what the Knicks can't do. You can't spend all of your cap and tie yourself up in contracts of players that make you better, but don't get you closer to the point of being a championship contender. So, for example, if you're tying up all of your money and second-tier guys that are not all-star caliber players, when an all-star caliber player becomes available, what do you have? You know, hopefully you could trade some of those guys, maybe. You know, my thing, if the Knicks can't find another all-star or NBA caliber player this offseason, roll it back. Just try to get a little better. Preserve your cap space until something comes along that you like. Because here's the deal. If you have just a good supporting cast and Randle is the only all-star, all-caliber player on your team, it's a first or second round exit every year. Every year. Somebody in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is there any championship caliber teams in the NBA right now who only has one all-star on the team and the rest are just very good players? Right? I mean, do you want to argue that with Giannis? But I think Middleton is an all-star caliber player. But chat, help me out with that. Is there anybody else? I think Andy has the answer to the question. We can get Lillard if Blazers are willing to trade for our young players, and then a player we signed to a big contract this offseason. So it's possible. So it's possible that we can get Lillard, another free agent in the offseason, and have Randle. So that's the answer to the question for Kaiser Soul 718. All right. Anything else we want to say about Randle? I think the issue is, and again, Mark brought this up, do the Knicks believe in Randle? Right? Because everything I said is based on us building around Randle. If the Knicks decide they're not doing that, then this whole thing falls apart, and we're having a different conversation, right? So I'm interested as well. I do think that the Knicks believe in Randle, but I do think they see more than ever that they need to bring in somebody else, and they need to do it quickly if they want to maximize his window. All right. This is a new segment. I'm playing around with segments in the whole season. All right. I want to talk a little bit about Thibs, and I want you guys to let me know, is my concern legitimate or if I'm overreacting? I'm going to start off by saying, and I've said this before, and if you followed MBK, if you follow Queen's Court, you know how I feel about Thibs. He was my first choice. I like the fact that he holds the guys accountable. I like that he brought defense back to New York. I like that he has a good relationship with the players off the court. Like they really like him. And I think that's important, that guys come to work and they want to play for their coach. And that he's relatable, but at the same time, he's a no-nonsense coach. And they take that from him because he built that relationship with them, that they know exactly where he's coming from. He's my guy. You know, considering where the Knicks were at prior to his hire, Thibs was exactly what the Knicks needed, right? They needed that structure that he brought. My concern, though, is structure without flexibility. You know, I'm not going to rehash everything, but we talked about this a lot on MBK and on Queen's Court, that in the playoffs, you know, unless he made micro adjustments, I'm not an NBA coach, right? So maybe he made micro adjustments that I didn't see. But there was not a lot of adjustments made to give the Knicks a chance. Now we see how the Hawks are playing. It might not have made a difference, right? But still, you want your coach to give you a chance. I didn't see that. I thought Quickly should have played a little more. Oh, I'm not going to go into all of it. We talked about it in the other shows. But the conclusion that I've come to is I don't think Thibs makes it past the third year of his contract. I just don't see it. I think that if the Knicks do win a championship, I don't see him being the head coach of the team at that time. And I know that's a big statement. I know that's a bold statement. I think he's given us what we need right now, but I think he's stuck in his ways. And I don't see him changing a lot. And no matter who you bring here, you bring Dame, you bring Kawhi, you could bring any star player here, the coach still has to put them in an advantageous position. The coach still has to make the necessary adjustments, right? You can't just roll the ball out and say play, right? And sometimes you have to make bold adjustments, right? So I'm thinking about the Clippers and Lou in the last playoff series. I believe it was a closeout game. He had Batum at center. You know, he didn't play Rondo. You know, sometimes, especially when it's on the edge, like a closeout game, sometimes you really have to throw the kitchen sink at it, you know, to see, you know, can I change the momentum? You know, what can I do to give us a fighting chance? And I did not see that from Thibs, and we're going to need that if we're ever going to win a championship, you know? And it's not all the time that the coach that gets you on the path is with you on the path, right? So let me know if you think that I have a legitimate concern. Do you think I'm overreacting? I really hope I'm wrong, because I like Thibs. He's a New York guy. I love the 90s Knicks. He was part of the 90s Knicks, and I would love for him to get a championship. First of all, I'd love for us to get a championship, period. And if we do, I would like Thibs to be a part of it. But if what I saw in that Atlanta series is any indication, I'm not feeling very encouraged, I have to say, going forward. So let me check the chat. Um, Kaiser Soul 78. The reason why Tibbs got fired in Minnesota is because he lost the players with his approach. I can see that happening in New York. I mean, I'm not. That may be true. I'm not concerned with his approach right now. I'm more concerned with just his lack of flexibility um, when we can win a game or win a series. But I will say though that I often wonder how some of these players would mesh with Tibbs and his approach. You know, with Dame and Tibbs mesh, with Kawhi and Tibbs mesh. Not saying we're going to get these players, but it has gone through my head when certain players have come up. I do ask, is this a Tibbs sort of guy? Would him and Tibbs get along? Would there be a lot of friction or conflict? So that has come up. BX Sports Jetty, appreciate you. Simon Barr, appreciate you. Said I'm always on point. I don't know about always, but I appreciate you. Josh, you're not overreacting at all. But Tibbs is in his late 60s, I believe. Yeah, rebuild NYK. I think Tibbs has to be a little more open-minded. Yeah, I think so too. And that's what I'm thinking. Can he do that at this age? And the only reason I say his age is only because when you get to a certain age, you've been doing something the same way over and over and over and over again. You see things the same way. And so it's hard to change, right? Like going into game 5, the series on the line, elimination game, he said, you got to bring out all the stops in a game like this. He did, you know? So it's like he may know it, but in the moment, does he feel comfortable doing it, right? And I think that could come back and bite us in the butt going forward. Antoine Jenkins, Tibbs is perfect for what we need, stability and accountability. I agree. That's exactly what I said. That's what we need now. But once you build a team, you know, and you have veterans and you have players that know what it is and who are accountable to themselves, you know, you don't need that as much. You need a coach who can bench coach, who can make the right decisions, make the substitutions, make those in-game and between-game adjustments. Can Tibbs do that? You know, it remains to be seen. May 4th, Steph, you can have my wrench. You deserve it. What does the wrench mean? Can somebody tell me what the wrench means? I see it a lot. I don't know what it means. So yeah, that's my take on with Tibbs. I don't think he makes it past the third year with this team. But we will see. That this is something that I really hope that I am wrong with. All right, I'm gonna move to my last segment, Twitter chatter. Like I said, I peruse Twitter a lot. I see a lot of Knicks Twitter, really. That's all I'm really interested in, Knicks Twitter, and people with their thoughts on how we should build the roster, things that we should do. So ever so often when something interesting comes up, I'm going to bring it to the chat. I didn't write this down verbatim because I didn't think I would use it. So I'm not able to give the person proper credit. I will do that the next time. But basically, the person asked, would we consider a trade for Bradley Beal, who will be 28 on June 28th, that includes RJ? Why or why not? So I'm interested to see. I know we love our RJ, and I do too. I think he has a good upside. But that was the question. It depends. If the Knicks are going to build, and we don't have any indication of what direction the Knicks are going to go, right? Once free agency starts, once they start making moves, we'll be able to glean which direction they're going in. But if the Knicks decide they're going to build with the young players, then no, I wouldn't do it. If you're going to build around RJ, Obi, IQ, Mitch, and the draft picks, then I would not make that trade. And in fact, I would go one step further. I would trade Randle. If you're not going to build with him, you're going to build around a younger core, I would trade Randle, get more draft picks, get some younger players, and just rock with that core, see if any of them pop and become all-star or NBA players. I think if you go that direction, it does give you a larger window to win a chip, infinite window, basically, because you don't really know what you're going to get from any of those guys. So no, I would not trade for Bradley Beal if we're going with the young core. However, if the Knicks decide that they're going to build around or with Randle and Beal becomes available, I mean, I don't think so, but someone said, if I remember correctly, he has a player option the next season. And a lot of times teams don't like to take it to the deadline. So if he doesn't sign an extension, then he might be available. I hope I have my facts correct. Somebody check me if I don't. If we decide we're going to build with Randle, Beal would be perfect. He would be perfect because his window, the years that he's going to be in his prime is about the same amount of years that Randle is going to be in his prime. And he's an all-star or NBA. Matter of fact, I believe he made all-NBA, the all-NBA team. So he's an all-star or NBA type player. The issue becomes how much salary is left, right? Because even with those two, you still have to have other good starters in that lineup, including a point guard, and you're still going to have to be able to have a decent bench, right? You can't go scorched earth for two players and not be able to put anything around them. I like RJ a lot, but you got to give to get. And the issue with RJ, if you're planning to win in Randle's prime years, is one, he'll be a good, solid player. The issue with RJ is you still have to go and get somebody else. He's not ready to be an all-star or NBA caliber player next to Randle, right? He's just not ready for that. So if you keep him, you still have to go out and get a player like that, right? So you could trade him for a player. Yeah, I would do that. The thing with RJ is, I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player, but when you're making these decisions, again, you're operating under a salary cap and you're operating around a particular window, right? Is he going to blossom within the window that we're trying to win a championship? He might, but Beal, in my opinion, is there right now, right? RJ can go on to be a very good low-end starter, like Green from Brooklyn. He can have a career like that, an all-around player, good three-point shooter, but nothing special. Or he can go on and pop and become a really good player. But the question is, will he do that within the window that the Knicks are trying to win a championship? That's always the question, right? So that's my take on it. Shout out to the chat. May 4th, we shouldn't be in any rush. We got to take our lumps and keep getting better. What's the rush? The rush is everybody in the NBA is trying to win a chip. Even if you're far away, like Orlando, they still got a game plan for how they can get in that conversation, how they can move into playoff championship contender. The rush is, and this is, I wish I could be more sure about this, but Randle's play in the playoffs really gives me a little pause. But the rush is, you got to take advantage of your opportunity. That's the rush. The rush is you have an all-NBA player, if you believe he's legitimately that, right now. So the rush is to build while he's in his prime, right? So now you just got to get one other player, very good player, and build, right? If you waiting, take your time, and we're going to wait and see what Obi becomes. We're going to wait and see what RJ becomes. Now your all NBA player is near the end of his prime, right? Now, if you're trying to win a championship, the window is really short, right? So this is new for me as well. You got to start thinking about windows of opportunities, and trying to win while the window is open, not when it's closed. If you're a New York football Giants fan, you remember the years and years and years of wasting Eli Manning's prime years because the Giants refused to put an adequate front line, a front line in front of him, offensive line in front of him. They want to get players that, young players that can grow together. That's fine, but you got an aging quarterback. So in a situation like that, just like the Patriots did, they stopgap their offensive line, plugged people in so that they can have a solid line while Brady was in his prime. They wasn't trying to groom a front line because they knew by the time that front line become legit, Brady, I didn't think I don't know if they thought he was going to play until 40. Brady would probably be out the league. That's what the Giants did. Wanted to grow a front line with an aging quarterback. The windows didn't match. And that's what the Knicks have to be cognizant of. And I believe that they are. You're trying to groom these young people. They come into their own, your star players on the decline, right? So that's the rush to me in terms of trying to take advantage of this window. Just want to give a few more shout out State of New York Knicks podcast. I'm going to be a guest on his podcast tomorrow. So you guys can, I don't know, a State of New York Knicks podcast, if you're still on, are we going to be live or are we just going to tape it and put it out later? But anyway, I'll keep you all posted. But I'm going to be on his show. Andy says, trading for Beal, RJ in the deal, means basically you get Beal and Randle as main guys and cheap add-ons to your roster, and that's it. Okay. So basically what Andy is saying is if we do that trade, you have your two main guys, but are you saying, Andy, we won't be able to have a legitimate bench and we won't be able to have a legitimate point guard or center on a team like that? I guess that's what he's saying. So I mean that's where the Knicks are, and that's where every team is. You're trying to get these two or more all-star type players and still build around them and still build a bench within the salary cap. So it's not easy. I don't envy the Knicks front office this season, but that's why they get paid the big bucks, to figure it out. Chris Willard, Steph, it gives everyone a pause, but I build and not totally disrupt the flow of the team. I agree our window is small, but those moves don't equal an automatic chip. Nothing is automatic. I mean, look at Philly. You're just trying to get in a conversation, hope things run your way. Listen, go your way. Any championship, there's a little bit of luck in there. You can look at any championship team, there was a little bit of luck in there. They didn't get injured. Maybe somebody on the other team got injured. There's always a little bit of a little bit of luck. But like I said, we will see. As long as the Knicks, again, don't spend their cap on players that don't really move the needle. And then if somebody comes along with just can't be players, I'm okay. I do want to improve. I do need that second all-star. But we gotta be smart. We gotta be smart about it. And I believe they will be. T. Williams, Randle ain't it. He couldn't get past Trae Young. Listen, he struggled in the playoffs. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it. He struggled in the playoff. Trae Young showed up. Randle tried to, and he just wasn't able to. Some of it was him. Some of it was not getting the help with the adjustments from the team. But I have to say, and this gives me some concern, there were times in the playoffs where I looked at Randle struggling, and it didn't have anything to do with what the Hawks was doing. it seemed like he was really slow in terms of processing what his next move was going to be. And he looked like a deer in headlights sometimes, like just he couldn't kind of grasp what was, what was going on. But that's okay. I still, he'll get better. We'll see. If he takes the extension, I think, that would be fine. We get off somewhat cheap. If he doesn't, it becomes a bigger issue because now for 200 million, I'm going through this with a fine tooth comb to see, is this our guy? Because he's going to take up so much of the salary cap. Our window has no limits. No, the window does. I don't get the window we do. There is no unlimited window. Every championship contending team has a window, right? All right. Anyway, thank you all. I'll be back next Friday. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me in the chat. I appreciate all the love that you give to me, to the MBK. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Hit that notification button. We got you covered for all your Knicks content. So hit that notification button so you'll know when we go live. Hit the like button. You can also follow me on Twitter. I have people asking me my takes on things. This is a new recent thing. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. So until next week, nothing but love, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.